Alright, so yesterday we left off with personification, which, as you remember, is giving a non-human thing human qualities, like saying my computer hates me. So let's continue on with that computer hatred thing a little bit with a term called hyperbole. Hyperbole is what is called an extreme exaggeration, and we use these every single day. Alright, an example of a hyperbole is the bag weighs a ton. Okay, so clearly the bag does not weigh 2,000 pounds, which is the same as a ton. Alright, but what people use hyperboles for is to really emphasize something about the object they're talking about. Alright, you fishermen do this all the time. Oh, the fish I caught was 13 pounds, when really it was a little tiny sunny. Okay, we use this all the time. So what hyperbole is it's just an extreme exaggeration. It's typically used for effect, to really get the point across. Okay. The next one we're going to talk about is the exact opposite of hyperbole, and that's what is called an understatement. An understatement is making something seem less important for effect. So while the hyperbole was an exaggeration to make it really big, really extreme, the understatement is the opposite. It's making something seem less important just to really emphasize the effect. So an example of this one is, we got a little snow last night. Okay, we've been saying that a lot this winter. Oh, it's just a little cold outside. Okay, it's saying something is less than it really is to make it more dramatic. The next one we're going to talk about is a little bit trickier. It's something called enjambment. Alright, the term is enjambment. So jam, like jelly, mint. Okay, enjambment is a run-on line of poetry in which logical and grammatical sense carries over from one line into the next. An enjam line differs from an end-stop line in which the grammatical and logical sense is completed within the line. Okay, that's a really wordy definition, so let me sum it up for you. Enjambment is when in a poem, the whole sentence, so the beginning of the sentence all the way to the period at the end, goes for more than one line of the poem. So if you remember, poetry is separated into lines. It's not like a story where it's just continuous, right? Okay, so enjambment is when that sentence continues on for more than one line. Alright, so let's take a look at an example. This is an example, alright? Sifted, unfallen snow, settling and unsettling snow, snow resting like mortar on the stone of the cold, unroofed, unfinished home we call the world, snow drifting far and wide. So if you take a look at this here, this sentence goes all the way from sifted down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines to wide. So that's enjambment because the sentence goes for more than one line of the poem. The other term that was in that one, if you remember, is the end-stopped line. Okay, where it says right here, an enjam line differs from an end-stopped line. Okay, in that example, the end-stop line is right here, but we drift, then fall. What that means is the sentence is all in one line. End-stop line is the sentence is all in one line. That's all there is to it. Alright, the next one you need to know is specifically for Shakespeare. So when we read Romeo and Juliet, you're going to really need to remember this one. This one is called blank verse. Alright, blank verse is a line of poetry or prose that doesn't rhyme. So the last words of each line do not need to rhyme, but it's in iambic pentameter. And we're going to go really in-depth in iambic pentameter later. Just remember that blank verse is in iambic pentameter. Those two phrases always go together. Okay, so keep that in mind for later. Another one we're going to talk about is something called caesura. Okay, it's not like my first name Sarah, it's caesura. Caesura. Okay, caesura is a strong pause within a line of verse. Okay, so when I say a line of verse, what that really means is just poetry. Or like songs. Songs are written in verse as well. Okay, caesura is a strong pause, meaning in the middle of the line, there is a punctuation mark of some sort that creates a pause. So that would be, and since it's a strong pause, it can't just be a comma. It would be a period, a semicolon, an exclamation point, a question mark, any of those sentence-ending punctuation marks. Okay, so a caesura is one of those punctuation marks in the middle of a line that causes strong pause. The next one we have is something called closed form. Okay, a couple of the poem types we're going to be talking about throughout this unit are a closed form style poem. Okay, closed form means it's a type of form or structure in poetry characterized by regularity and consistency in such elements as rhyme, line length, and metrical pattern. A really good example of the closed form would be the haiku, which we talk about a little bit later, where there's a certain amount of words in each line and there's a certain amount of lines. Okay, another really good example of closed form is the sonnet, because there are 14 lines in the sonnet and each line has 10 syllables. Okay, sonnets also have a rhyme scheme that goes with them. So whenever there's a really set structure to the poem, it's closed form. Alright, the next one we're going to talk about is called a stanza. You might have heard this term before. The stanza is a division or unit of a poem that is repeated in the same form, either with similar or identical patterns or rhyme and meter, or with variations from one stanza to another. Okay, so that's another really wordy definition. So the summary of the stanza is it's basically the paragraph of the poem. Okay, in sonnets, one type of poetry that we're going to be looking at, a stanza is 4 lines in length. Okay, and you can definitely tell where the stanza breaks are because a lot of poets will put a space in between stanzas, or there'll be a very set rhyme scheme like A, B, A, B, and then the next stanza will be suddenly C, D, C, D. So you can definitely tell where the stanza breaks are. It's not like it's something you need to guess at. It's very obvious. Okay, but the stanza is just a division of the poem, so it's a chunk of the poem, kind of like the paragraph of an essay. Kind of the same concept, okay? We're going to look at stanzas a little bit more later. Alright, another one we're going to talk about is something called the couplet. This one is also going to really come into play when we read Romeo and Juliet. Okay, a couplet is a pair of rhyme lines that may or may not constitute a separate stanza in a poem. So what this means is, especially in the sonnet, the third stanza is just a couplet, all right? But what a couplet is 2 rhyme lines, so 2 lines directly in a row that rhyme with each other and only each other. They don't rhyme with anything else. Okay, so that is what a couplet is. Alright, so I've been mentioning a couple of these words over and over again. This one is rhythm, which obviously you've heard because we talk about rhythm in songs, we talk about rhythm when you're in band and choir and all of that type of stuff. But poetry has rhythm as well. And rhythm is the recurrence of accent or stress in lines of verse. Okay, what constitutes the beat of a poem. And a lot of poets use certain types of words that have stresses and certain syllables to create that rhythm for us. So it's a little bit different than the songs where you don't have the drum in the background for us. So here is an example of rhythm in poetry for us. So here is an example of poetry with rhythm. This is a poem by John Donne, a very famous poet. And it's read by Sir Kenneth Branagh, which most of you know is my absolute favorite man on the planet because he's Professor Lockhart from Harry Potter.
I wonder by my troth what thou and I did till we loved. Were we not weaned till then, but sucked on country pleasures childishly? Or snorted we in the 7 sleepers' den? 'Twas so. But this, all pleasures fancies be. If ever any beauty I did see, which I desired and got, 'twas but a dream of thee. And now good morrow to our waking souls, which watch not one another out of fear, for love, all love of other sights controls, and makes one little room, and everywhere. Let sea discoverers to new worlds have gone, let maps to other worlds on worlds have shown. Let us possess one world, each hath one, and is one. My face in thine eye, thine in mine appears, and true plain hearts do in the faces rest. Where can we find 2 better hemispheres, without sharp north, without declining west? Whatever dies was not mixed equally, If our two loves be one, or thou and I love so alike that none do slacken, none can die.
Alright, so that poem very clearly has a very distinct rhythm, and it's not just because Kenneth Branagh is pretty much the most awesome man alive. Alright, the way he reads through the poem, there's a very distinct da-da-da-da-da-da rhythm set up by the words the poem gives to us. The way the poet writes it gives it a distinct rhythm specific that they want us to get from it. Alright, and one not too confused with rhythm, although they're spelled pretty similar, is rhyme, which hopefully all of you know because, Dr. Seuss is a very popular dude. Okay, rhyme is the matching of final vowel or consonant sounds in two or more words. Alright, so typically you see rhyme at the end of the lines, and that's really the only type we are going to be talking about, is where the final word in each poetry line rhymes with the next one. So the vowel sounds are similar. Cat, hat. Alright, so whenever they have the very similar vowel sound, or sometimes the consonant sounds as well with the vowel sound, because obviously you want it to match a little bit more, then they rhyme with each other. And obviously all of you have read Dr. Seuss, so you know what rhyme looks like. So this one's a little bit more of a review for you. Alright, the next one is my absolute favorite one in the world because, let's be honest, onomatopoeia is the funnest word to say in the world. And onomatopoeia is a fun one in addition because the definition is fun. What onomatopoeia is all of those words that we make up to reference a sound. Okay, so let's take a look at an example of onomatopoeia. Alright, so this very, very old-fashioned version of the Batman TV show has some excellent examples of onomatopoeia, kind of like those old comic book little blurbs that pop up. Words like crunch, sizzle, blap, whap. Alright, any sound that, or word we create to reference a sound. So if I hit the table, okay, I wouldn't say in my poem, oh, he hit the table and it was loud. No, it'd be splat! He hit the table! Okay, so onomatopoeia really explains what sound is created. Alright, and then we have repetition, which is repeating words and phrases over and over again for effect. So this one's pretty self-explanatory, but let's take a look at an example. Repetition, repetition, repetition.
Oh, Captain, my Captain, by Walt Whitman. Oh, Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack, the prize we sought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting, while follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh, heart, 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 oh, the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen, cold and dead.
Alright, so Oh Captain, My Captain is an excellent example of repetition for the very simple fact of it repeats itself for effect. So if you look in the first stanza, we have Oh Captain, My Captain. Okay, just those first two phrases repeat themselves, which draws our attention just a little bit more, it catches our interest just a little bit more for effect. And then you look in the second stanza where we have, but oh heart, heart, heart. It repeats the word heart over and over and over again just to catch our attention a little bit more. So that is it for the notes today. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good one.